Hey everyone. So today, as you probably guessed from the title, I will be doing a Q&A session. Um, these questions have came from multiple anonymous sort of like chat apps, basically. Stuff like Whisper and things like that. Um, I thought, like in my last Q&A, I thought the best place to get questions from is from places that are anonymous, because then you're more likely to get honest questions instead of people being afraid of like offending or anything like that, or scared of what you'll think of them and stuff like that. So I thought that would be like the best plan. So I've got a good few questions here that I'm going to answer and give my point of view. And if anyone else would like to give their point of view on any of the questions, or know a bit more than me about these questions, then please feel free to comment down below. So yeah, my first question is when going on testosterone, does it damage your singing voice? Now, I'm not much of a singer, but from doing musical theatre along with dance in uni, I found that obviously your voice is going to change. I used to be a soprano singer, and now I'm a bass singer. So yes, my voice has literally went from like this high down to like here. I'm like a low set bass. Um, so yeah, it doesn't damage your singing voice, but it definitely does affect it, and you need to learn how to reuse your voice. So you like basically get put back to stage one in a kind of way, depending on how much you sing. The best advice I would have for keeping your singing voice intact would probably be to keep using your voice, keep singing, just don't strain yourself, because when you strain, that's when you will damage your voice. So there's going to be times where you won't be able to reach those notes that you used to reach, or maybe you might have to go into falsetto to reach those notes. But it's just getting used to your voice. But keep exercising it whilst your voice is breaking. Just don't exercise it to a point where it's hurting. That's where you need to stop, because then you are going to damage yourself. So yeah, like when I did dance at college, we did do a little bit of singing, but it wasn't that much. And it was when I was at college that I started going on testosterone near the end of the year, and I hardly sung. I didn't sing until I got to uni, and I had no idea what my voice could do. Didn't know any of my range, nothing like that. And it wasn't until like near the end of first year that I found out what my range was and stuff like that, and what my voice could do. And I'm still trying to basically train my voice and stuff like that. So yeah. So no, tea doesn't damage your singing voice, it'll just alter it in a way, and you need to figure out those alterations. Um, Next question is, what's recovery like for chest surgery? Now, as most of you know, there are three different kinds of top surgery. You've got keyhole surgery, you've got peri-areolar surgery, areola surgery. There we go, peri-areola surgery. Can't say that properly. And double incision. Keyhole is very minor. You just get a scar underneath your nipple here, and that's more or less you. That's all you really have. Peri, which is what I had, the scars go all the way around the nipple, and they remove a circle of skin to tighten up the skin, for then you haven't got less skin. And then double incision is when the nipples get grafted to a different place and you get quite a bit of skin removed, and that's the most common one, and you end up with scars going along here, and your nipples will get grafted into a different place. For me, the recovery for peri-surgery was not that bad. It was about 6 week recovery time, and then slowly getting into doing different exercises and stuff. What's important is you don't overdo yourself. As soon as you feel any bit of pain, you stop, because that's how your scars get stretched, basically. I've got very, very slight stretching on my right side, but I think that's basically because I'm right-handed, so everything that I was doing, I was using my right. So it's extremely slight compared to this because I didn't really use my left arm at all whilst in recovery. It's especially important not to overdo yourself when you have double incision surgery, because then you've got the chance of stretching these scars, so what could have been just a thin white line could end up thick, lumpy, red. It's not very nice, and there's no point going through all the stuff that trans men have to go through to then get your surgery, to then not be happy with your results because your scars are stretched. So yeah, recovery for me wasn't that bad. It was just basically taking it easy, occupying myself, making sure that I didn't get too restless, and just basically keeping an eye on everything. As some of you know from watching my previous videos, I did get an infection in my nipple, but in my left one. Was it my left? Yes, it was. But that did not affect my recovery time. It was still 6 weeks, which I'm pretty sure it's 6 weeks for more or less all the different surgeries. But still, be careful, look after yourself. Make sure you're eating properly, make sure you're drinking properly. If you're sore, painkillers, plenty of rest. Your body heals up so much quicker when you're resting, because it doesn't have to focus on you doing anything else. That's why a lot of people tend to stay in the bed quite a bit after surgery, because resting makes the healing process quicker. But at the same time, you also need to do exercises like getting used to the movement of your arms and stuff like that. But as soon as it hurts, you stop. Like, for example, when I was about 2-3 weeks surgery, I could lift this arm up to here, but I could only lift this arm up to here. So it's finding where your limitations are, really. So recovery isn't that bad, you've just got to be patient and stay at it. Now, this is one that I've never had before. What are my views on gender-neutral bathrooms? Now, at my college, we had a gender-neutral bathroom. We had the males, the females, and then we had the gender-neutral, which used to be the disabled toilet, but they changed it to a disabled/gender-neutral toilet. And it went great. At the same time, it was just one bathroom in there. So I think changing the bathrooms to gender-neutral for all of them is a good idea to an extent. Like, obviously it shows equality and stuff, but at the same time, we all know what happens when something good comes around. Someone's going to come around and ruin it. There's going to be an incident that happens in a gender-neutral bathroom where some form of assault, I don't know, something like that will probably happen, and it'll ruin it for everyone. So, but at the same time, what I do disagree on is when people say that trans people will probably do that, because that's not the case. We are literally there to just pee. We are more terrified about going to the toilet than you ever will be. We will keep our head down. We will not say a word. I mean, I am over 2 years on testosterone, over a year on my chest surgery, and in the process of being referred for my lower surgery, and I am still terrified of going into male toilets. Like, it is a scary thing, because I literally have to go up to a stall. I can't use the urinal, and I don't think even after my lower surgery I'll use the urinal, because I am extremely pee shy. Like, I cannot pee in front of anyone. When I first got my stand-to-pee packer, I practiced for months getting it right, for then I wouldn't have any accidents or anything like that. I thought, oh, this is great, I'm buzzing, I can't wait to use the urinal, stand there with the guys, it'll be great. The first time I used it in public, there was no one in. I was peeing absolutely fine. Someone literally opened the door and I stopped peeing. I couldn't pee until after he left. And so that's when I realised, right, obviously peeing at a urinal is not for me, so I'll have to wait for a stall. But it's still a scary thing even for me. So yeah, so basically I think gender neutral bathrooms are a good idea, but no doubt someone's going to ruin it at some point. So yeah, um, when did I learn about trans people? Now, I didn't know there was such things as trans until quite late on in my teens. I think I must have been about 15, maybe? Yeah? About 15, and I met one trans person. I asked him a few questions, but I wasn't that close to him, so I didn't really get that far. Didn't know anything about the hormones, about the surgeries, anything like that. Didn't know how any of that went, and it wasn't until so that's when like I first found out about trans people. Like, apologies. Like I obviously knew there was such things like sex changes and stuff like that, but I had no idea how it worked, and didn't understand it at all. Um, it wasn't until I went to college. It was my second year at college, and I met someone whose brother was trans, and I got talking to him on Facebook. I got to ask all questions and stuff like that, like hormones, how did it work, stuff like that. And then that was really a turning point for me, which will then lead on to my next question: when did you come out? I came out not long after speaking to this person. I was speaking to this person for a good few months, and then I came out to my mum just before Christmas, about 3 years ago. And so, yeah, that's when I came out. So yeah, did I feel mentally different after hormones? Um, at the beginning stages, I was very agitated, got annoyed easier, got upset easier but couldn't cry, because testosterone likes to stop you from crying. I don't cry that often. The only time I can cry is when I'm extremely upset or when I'm coming to the end of my t-shirt. That's when my body basically allows me to cry. Oh. But stuff like agitation and that is all completely normal, because think about it, your body's going through some form of a menopause, and it's also going through male puberty at the same time. Now, if one or the other wasn't bad enough by itself, the two of them together, you are probably going to get agitated a lot easier. I went on a full-blown riot because I spilt milk whilst making cereal. I spilt milk and I sat on the floor and I tried to cry, but I couldn't cry. Then I got angry that I couldn't cry. So yeah, so it is a quite emotional time and your brain's sort of all over the place. But at the same time, that didn't stop me from being happy because I was seeing all these amazing changes. So I think the way that I changed the most mentally was through the fact that I was happier. I was happier, I was more confident, I was excited every day checking the mirror to see all these changes happening. It was crazy. And then when I got to a few months on testosterone, and then I'd look back at old pictures, you'd see it changes even more, and it was amazing. So yeah, that's ooh. So yeah, that's that. Next question: when did I come out to my friends? I came out to my friends after New Year's. Um, Obviously not this year. Yeah, New Year's about 3 years ago. Once I went back to college because I went to the doctors on the 10th of January. I think it was 2013. 10th of January 2013. To tell them that I was basically not happy in my body. I wanted to transition to male. And then once I knew the ball was rolling with that, that's when I thought, right, okay, time to tell lecturers. So I told my lecturers, all that went fine, and then my lecturers basically said to me, do you want us to tell the group or do you want you to tell the group? I went, well, I prefer me to tell them because if they've got any questions, I can answer them because I'd done my research. I also had Kai who could tell me tell me the answers of everything that I didn't know. And so I said I'd prefer I do it. And so instead of just going round everyone one by one, my lecturers gave me a set time just before we started a class to basically explain to them and any questions. And they asked me all these questions and stuff, and it was all fine. I didn't have any problems whatsoever at college, so that was absolutely great. Next question, did I lose any friends? No, not really. I think the only people who had a problem were people who I didn't really talk to anyway. So yeah, so that was very easy to ignore. I didn't really lose anyone during this process. Like, obviously, when coming out, I was in a relationship with a girl who was a lesbian. So sort of like that didn't really work out because obviously me wanting to be a man and her being a lesbian doesn't really work. So I lost a relationship because of it, but I'm still friends with her. Like, still know her, still speak to her when she speaks to me and stuff like that. So like, yeah, like didn't really lose anyone. So that was I was very, very lucky in that case, and I haven't really had any problems with any of my friends. Just the odd question and that, like, how does this work, how does that work, and stuff like that. So yeah. What do you do when people call you by your birth name? Well, I don't have that problem really anymore. But when I first came out, that was one of the biggest things that people took a while to get a hold of. Like, it was probably like the second biggest thing people had to get used to. The first one has to be pronouns, because to be honest, it's a lot easier to change your name. It's a bit harder to change pronouns. Like, I'd have people sat there talking about me. I'd be sat there and I'd be like, oh yeah, this is Ethan, she, and then the person who they're talking to is like, what? And then the other person wouldn't realise, and I'd be like, he, and they'd be like, oh yeah, right, sorry, yeah. So basically, when it comes to a birth name, especially when you're first coming out, it is going to be hard to correct people. You're going to be scared to correct people. But at the same time, you've chosen this name. This is your name now. This is what you want to be known as. So you need to sort of stick at it with them and basically be like, look, listen. If the person, it's all right if they make a little mistake every now and then, like they go to say your name and then your birth name, and then they change it to your actual name. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. It's the people who they'll say your birth name and then you'll be like, no, and then it'd be like, all right, sorry, but then continue to call you your birth name, or just blatantly refuse to call you by your chosen name. When it comes to those people, you need to just stick at it. Really, you need to just be like, look, that's not my name, and what you're saying is upsetting me. So can you not do that and like respect me a little bit? And if they hit out with stuff like, oh, that's oh well, it says on your birth certificate this, blah 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 blah, you haven't changed it legally, stuff like that. Literally, just tell them, like, someone said that to me once. They said my birth name, I went, well, that's not my name, and they went, oh, well, it says it on your birth certificate. I went, yeah, it also says I'm about 7 ounces, so obviously things change. So basically, you've just got to keep at it with these people and see if they keep going. Just cut them out. Just cut them out, because obviously if they're not going to respect you, what's the point of having them in your life? Like, they won't do any good in your life. They're just going to upset you. So that's my advice on that. Like, just keep at it, give them chances, give them time to get used to it. But if you're like 3 months down the line after telling them and they're still making mistakes but not correcting themselves, that's when you get to the point where you're like, right, okay, enough's enough. And you basically say, either respect me and use the name that I picked, or use the pronouns that I picked, whichever one they have a problem with, or I'm cutting this off. because it's just going to upset you, and there's no need to upset you. Like, if they're your friends, they won't do that. Next. How do you meet other trans people or other trans young people? Now, for this, the best thing to do is find your local LGBT group, youth group or support group or something like that. If you don't have one in your area, the best thing would probably be to take stuff like Facebook or Instagram and stuff like that, because there's plenty of private and secret groups and open groups that you can be added onto through Facebook, which will get you in contact with trans men from all over the world, or trans women from all over the world, or just trans people from all over the world. Like, there are a lot of us. Like, seriously. And you'll probably find the further on your transition you get, the more you'll know. The more you'll know these people, and you'll probably find that you might think, oh well, there's no trans people living around my area or living anywhere near me. You'll probably find that there's someone about like 10-15 minutes up the road. It's just all about putting yourself out there, talking to other trans people, getting to know them, stuff like that. And so it might seem hard at the moment, but it's quite easy to find trans people to talk to. Like, I have people messaging me on Facebook and stuff like that who I've never spoken to in my life, but they'll speak to me, they'll ask me for advice and stuff like that. And I'm absolutely fine with that. Obviously, some trans people can be a bit funny about that, especially like people who've been transitioning for a while. You'll ask them for advice and they'll be like, "Oh well, look it up yourself." Obviously, not all trans people who've been transitioning for a while, but I have met a few who you'll ask them questions, they'll be like, "Oh well, find it out yourself," because that's what I had to do, and that's not really a way to go. We're supposed to all support each other and help each other, especially if you're going to be on a support group for trans people and someone asks you a question. What's the point in being on the support group if you are not going to offer support and advice? So, yeah. So basically, the best thing to do is, if there's not any LGBT groups in your area, is to go out into social media. And even if you're not out, or if you live in stealth, there's still ways that you can talk to trans people over social media. There's groups that you can go on to that no one will know you're a part of and stuff like that. So, yeah. Next 2 seconds. Let me just check these texts. Sorry about this. There we go. Right. Next is dating trans people. How do you go about the whole dating situation? Right. Well, since me coming out, I haven't really found dating people that much of an issue, because I've only really been in 2 relationships since me coming out. And both of these people knew that I was a trans before we got together. My advice when it comes for if they don't know you're trans, like obviously if they do know you're trans and they're interested in you, you don't really have that much of a problem. It's just when it comes to like, if they're interested in you, they know you're trans, but they don't quite know like how things work, stuff like sex and stuff like that. That's something that you'll have to talk to them about. You'll have to explain to them, look, there's things that I'm not going to be comfortable with, there's things that I'm going to be comfortable with. You sort of have to have a chat and talk about what you're comfortable with and what they're comfortable with as well. Because maybe something that you're comfortable doing, they might not be comfortable in doing. So that's stuff that you have to talk about and stuff like that. And I know it can be a bit weird when you're getting into a relationship with someone, like you're first getting into a relationship, you don't want to sit them down and have like a talk about what you can and can't do during sex, but at the same time you also don't want to be in the heats of passion and then they do something that makes you feel extremely uncomfortable and you just sort of cut off and curl into a ball and stuff like that. So you don't really want that. So it is good to try and find a way to comfortably talk to them about stuff like this. They'll probably ask you like, what are you comfortable with and stuff like that, or is there anything that I should or shouldn't do? So yeah. The harder bit is when there's someone who's interested in you and you're interested in them and they don't know. Now, I haven't had this problem myself, but from talking to other trans people who have had this problem, the main sort of thing that I get is that before you get into anything sexual, like, it's okay not to tell them straight away. Like, they don't want to be like, oh, my name's Julie, and you're like, oh, well, my name's James and I'm transgender. Like, you don't need to do that. Like, from what I've heard from other people, the best thing to do is to just give it a couple of dates, wait a while, see if you've got some chemistry, see if there's something like really there. And then when you get a bit comfortable with each other obviously before you have sex, because if you're going to have sex and you're trans or you haven't had any surgeries or you've only had one surgery and stuff like that, they're obviously going to find out that way. And there's no need to shock people. That's normally what makes people be like, well, no, that's not right, you shouldn't have done that. And so basically give it some time, let them get to know you. Like, obviously this is a big thing for you, and if like you're stealth or if you're not comfortable in being like right out and stuff like that, it's sort of like, it's not a bad secret, but it is a secret that you need to trust people before you tell them. So you just need to give it time with them, and then when you feel like the time's right, that's where you sit them down and you go, look, listen, I am a trans man, I was born female, I'm now male, or if you're a trans woman, I was born male, I'm now female, and stuff like that. And you've just got to sit them down and talk about it, and if they accept you, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's obviously you've got something good there. This person like accepts you for who you are, knows that you can't really change anything, that it's not your fault sort of thing, and that's great, and you'll probably have a great relationship. But if they don't and they kick off about it and they start shouting and screaming and stuff, obviously that person is not for you. And even though it's hard to say, like, especially when you like someone, it's hard to say, right, well, this person obviously isn't good for me, like, it's not going to happen. You still need to do that because there's no point in hurting yourself over someone who won't accept you. My last question, which I haven't actually had before, as well, is what would you tell your younger self? Um, well, obviously I am definitely not the same person as what I was a few years ago. Not just looks and stuff like that. Like mental health wise and confidence wise and happiness wise in general. Um, and so what I'd say to myself is, it's going to sound extremely cliche, but it does get better. I know you might feel rubbish right now, you might feel like doing silly things, but there's no point in doing that because you need to fight to be happy. And although a lot of people in the world don't necessarily need to fight to be happy or need to fight as hard to be happy, that's what you need to do. And you will get to be happy, you will get to look at yourself in the mirror one day and be happy with what you see. And there's so many amazing things to come in your life, so many great opportunities that if you give up now, you'll never get to have. And that and that one day you are going to be happy and see, because you've had to go through so much stuff, like years of stuff, when you get those little snippets of happiness, they'll mean so much more because you've had to fight for it. And since you have to fight for it, when you get it, it means so much more, and it's an amazing feeling. Like, it's literally euphoria, cloud nine, over the moon sort of happiness. It's great. Like, there's been very few times in my life that I've been brought to tears because I'm so happy. But I do get times like that now. because I've stuck at it and I've pushed myself, and at times when I want to give up I haven't, and it's made those happy moments even better, so much better than what I imagined. So yeah, so that's what I would say to my younger self. And that is all the questions that I've got. If you have any comments or any advice on any questions that I've had that I haven't already said, please feel free to comment down below. And if you have any questions yourself, please feel free to comment down below as well, and I will add them.